Hello, this is the WUAS News and Question and Answer on Monday, April 10th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Eastern Time in the USA, 7 a.m. Pacific Time, I think it's 7:30 p.m. India time. And as we wait to see if people will join this World University and School open news and question and answer, I'd like to share a little news with you about developments in MIT open courseware-centric Wiki World University and School, potentially on further developing Google WUAS platform as we accredit with the Middle States Commission on Higher Education with offices in the greater Philadelphia area and the state of Pennsylvania's Department of Education for licensing. So the first news item I'd like to share with you is in a envisioning vein, a big picture vein, how to create at World University and School a research academic medical center in Canyon 94516, and for physical digital WUAS longevity genetics, physical digital WUAS aging reversal genetics, and potentially collaborating with the Flywire Connectome Drosophila fly brain citizen science project with something like Google Street View with Time Slider, Maps, Google Earth, TensorFlow AI, and in a realistic virtual Earth for species, for evolutionary biology, for genetics, and similar. So a tweet in these regards. Hi, Amy Stewart, at Amy Neurons and Viren Jane at Google AI, and regarding TensorStore, and Sven Dorkenwald with the Flywire Connectome at Princeton, with the Drosophila Connectome, and then potentially 6 to 10 species, including human, dog, mouse, chicken, honeybee, how to create at World University and School a research academic medical center in Canyon 94516, and for physical digital WUAS longevity genetics. So the Drosophila Fly Connectome project now have over 40,000 annotations, and these have been added to Flywire or to Flywire by its community, its citizen science community. This is a remarkable set of developments in bringing the potential for many citizen scientists to help grow such a new approach to modeling of the Flywire Drosophila fly connectome and similar brain science digital modeling projects. Exciting times in so many ways. Item 1A, so how to do this for aging reversal with the Flywire Connectome with citizen science. And there's a YouTube video, which I'll post in both of World University and School's blogs today, regarding how the Flywire Connectome is structured from a citizen scientists and from the main architects of the Flywire Connectome citizen science project. We'll share that YouTube video as well. If you wanted to start participating in the Flywire Connectome, or potentially also in World University and Schools seeking to develop further a realistic virtual Earth for brains and brain science of species. This Flywire Drosophila connectome is primarily, as I understand it, has a focus on neuron cells, Drosophila neuron cells. And one of the directions World University and School seeks to head in is a molecular connectome. So how would the molecules of a Drosophila fly brain interact in this digital modeling process in 3D that's immersive and interactive and iterative with Drosophila neuron cells, and allowing us to potentially engage in and learn more about and code for and engage fully molecular reality and in a realistic virtual Earth, such as Google Street View with Time Slider and TensorStor, and even with a focus on aging reversal. And this is a retweeting George Church, professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School and also professor at MIT, recent tweet, quote, "Computers became toys. Then the industry really took off. And that has to happen with biotech, with a molecularreality.com website, and regarding synthetic biology and citizen science and biotechnology and Freeman Dyson and molecular reality." So how could World University and School, potentially collaborating with the Flywire connectome, build out further a molecular connectome, and for the Drosophila fly brain at first, and grow from there to these other species? So item 2, with new aging reversal genetic drugs emerging and in clinical trials now, and since human longevity RCTs and WS clinical trials, random clinical trials, and for WS clinical trials, potentially beyond 122 years old, because these randomized clinical trials potentially take so long, how could World University and School, potentially in conversation with Harvard Medical School's professor of genetics, George Church, and Dr. Rob Califf at the FDA, Food and Drug Administration in Washington, develop randomized clinical trials with packets through the mail, packets through the postal service, and in all 200 countries, and in their languages, and developing samples of people for randomized clinical trials from all 7.9 billion people on the planet that WUAS seeks to code for. So can we draw our ends for our sample sizes for various randomized clinical trials from all 7.9 billion people, from speakers of all 7,151 known living languages, thanks to the developing information technology platform that World University and School is growing. And this is a retweeting of a picture of Food and Drug Administration drug packet being put into the United States Postal Service post office box from Dr. Rob Califf. Quote, "The FDA is requiring manufacturers of opioid analgesics dispensed in outpatient settings to make prepaid mail-back envelopes available to outpatient pharmacies and other dispensaries as an additional opioid analgesic disposal option for patients." This is a potentially remarkable, suitable approach to developing randomized clinical trials in conjunction with the FDA, with packets through the mail in the United States Postal Service and potentially in all 200 countries' postal services. item 3, how can World University and School best develop molecular reality in a realistic virtual Earth for molecules in relationship to atoms, so that we could play with putting atoms together to create molecules digitally, and also the relationship between molecules to atoms, atoms to molecules, and both to cells, and cells to atoms and molecules. These 3 scales, in their enormous complexity of biological living processes in all kinds of species, for molecular reality in virtual reality, would allow us to begin to play in a realistic virtual Earth for genetics, for example, and for us to grow potentially all kinds of new approaches to biotechnology innovation developments, pharmaceuticals, and similar. And further, how could we develop these molecules to atoms and back, atoms to cells and back, molecules and atoms to cells, and the other way, with film to 3D applications at all these scales, potentially for citizen science, potentially from home, and to begin to play with these, this molecular reality, and thus to learn more about it. So this is news item 4, and it's also regarding potentially developing a realistic virtual Earth in a very creative way, but in particular a realistic virtual Harbin hot springs for further ethnographic research, possibly even a realistic virtual Harbin ethnography as a large language model that possibly could even become conscious, or at least in the way that humans might understand it as being conscious, and for research, STEM research, STEAM research, soaking research. And regarding 3 great rock and roll and blues songs about hot springs. One is the Allman Brothers Band, the Gatlinburg Tapes from 1971, which has a picture of the Allman Brothers, including Duane Allman at the time, in a hot springs. And the second song is a blues song by Robert Johnson from around 1936, mentioning hot springs, called the 3220 Blues. And the third rock and roll song is the English group Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song from about 1970. And all these songs about hot springs, in a way, evoke possibilities beyond these YouTube videos and YouTube audio for creating further a realistic virtual Harbin hot springs, or realistic virtual Earth that in some ways could rock and roll, and thus allow us to play further in the way that music such as this, and Hot Springs 2 potentially, can transport us neurally, neurophysiologically, in a sense. And how could we then further go into, for example, visit from any of 200 countries, possibly, realistic virtual Harbin hot springs, and soak from our home bathtubs, and begin to have a Harbin hot springs experience, and study this as well in a realistic virtual Earth, a realistic virtual Harbin, a physical, digital, developing, iterating, realistic virtual Harbin ethnographic field site, with Harbin hot springs in its current form coming right out of the 1960s and 70s, from 1972, when in Northern California, about 2 hours northeast of San Francisco, it became Harbin Hot Springs in its current form, eventually Heart Consciousness Church in 1975, and New Age Church of Being in 1996. So informed by hippies to the hot springs and soaking in the warm pools and the related possible meditative effects. How can we study this further, ethnographically and with science, technology, engineering, and mathematical methods in a realistic virtual Harbin? And with such interesting expressions of hot springs, such as the Allman Brothers Band and Robert Johnson's and Blues, 3220 Blues, and Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song, will visitors begin in a realistic virtual Harbin online, begin to create their own music? And will that be further interesting and fascinating creative expressions of Harbin Hot Springs itself ethnographically? The song and dance newly generated of realistic virtual Harbin Hot Springs. Harbin Hot Springs has already, in some ways, given form to Watsu, water shiatsu, a water dance practice that has some roots also in Japan and other hot springs cultures, perhaps. But this is something we could study further also in a realistic virtual hearth, a realistic virtual Harbin. Item 5. So World University and School is seeking to further accredit with Middle States Commission on Higher Education with offices in the greater Philadelphia area, and further license with the state of Pennsylvania's Department of Education. Having heard from both of these organizations in January and February and March, but with WUAS not having the monies to pay their fees yet, and as WUAS waits for further WUAS information technology information platforms to develop. So item 5A, in a related vein, having just taken a trip on this past weekend on Saturday to West Virginia, about 2 hours from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I continue to wonder how World University and School can offer free MIT open courseware-centric WUAS online degrees for people in other US states, such as West Virginians, and for students from all 50 US states, from all 200 countries, first in English, and potentially on an emerging Google WUAS platform for West Virginians, for example, and also with reimbursement from West Virginia's counties, departments of education, to World University and School, as we accredit with Middle States Commission on Higher Education, for students from their homes. Bachelor, PhD, law, medicine, IB high school or similar, AA 2-year degrees, bachelor, undergraduate degrees, master's degrees, opening a new world of education, potentially for West Virginians. Interesting possibilities ahead as World University and Schools accreditation proceeds, and as various universitians travel to different places and explore relationships with the states, departments of education, for example, in Pennsylvania too, making online WUS degrees available to Pennsylvanians. Item 6, how to abolish the illegal sex industry and latent networks of violence as even modern slavery, and in particular in authoritarian countries. For example, in China, Russia, KSA, Saudi Arabia, and in all 200 nation states that World University and School seeks to create major online MIT OpenCourseware-centric universities regarding authoritarianism, for example. And one approach in seeking to protect such many people, say from the illegal drug industry and the illegal sex industry and their latent networks of violence in all 200 countries, is through the law and potentially WUAS law schools, which are planned in 200 countries in their main languages, and in conjunction with potentially law enforcement and education of law enforcement, also in all 200 countries, and even with developing WUAS MD psychiatry, possibly newly as large language models, AI generative conversation, machine learning, medical psychiatry online. And also in the context of World University and School seeking to code for all 7.9 billion people on the planet. So we're seeking to code for speakers of all 7,151 known living languages in all of their 200 countries. And we would like to extend beyond speakers of all 7,151 known living languages, brainstorming-wise, to code for all 7.9 billion people on the planet, how to protect people, say, from organized crime, so that we don't come to somehow harm people unknowingly, or we would like to avoid the recent tragedies, for example, at MIT and MIT OpenCourseware in some of these regards, as just one example. Item 7, also with regard to authoritarian countries like China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, an interesting sociocultural anthropology set of questions regarding Google search about authoritarian countries, about, for example, Google in authoritarian countries, such as China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia, has to do with what has Google AI coded for Google to give access to the distributed web in such countries to get past authoritarian censors and in these countries' languages. And when searching on, and if you wanted to further develop these sets of inquiries, also on World University and Schools wikis, in our wiki subjects, for example, in our anthropology wiki subject, in our sociology wiki subject, in our political science wiki subject, wiki schools, to begin research for yourselves into, for example, authoritarian censorship, I Google searched on Russia and Google search, and found that on Google that Google search is the second most visited search engine in Russia after Yandex. Fascinating. And I searched on Google search in China, and indeed Google search is available in China, and how the Google search engine responded to this query is Google search is partially blocked in China. So Google has found a way to code its Google Search AI to become partially available in China. There's a dialogue, a conversation here, for example, between Google and these countries regarding Google's resources, Google's opportunities, and also what a country will allow for information technology-wise in terms of their networks and their citizens. And similarly, in searching on Google search in Saudi Arabia, 2022, the most visited site, this is how Google describes it, in Saudi Arabia on Google search is Madrasati, which is an education site. Fascinating that Google search, with its approach to information and modeling the world's information, is available in Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, and that one can find out about this research-wise from Google search itself. And there's also potentially a remarkable set of research projects. This is sort of item 7A for you and world university and school universitians about getting to what the each of these 200 countries' webs, what their internets are, a country's internet, the Russian internet, the Chinese internet, the Nigerian internet, the South African internet, the United States internet, is ethnographically, sociologically, numerous possible ways to model this, to write academic papers about this, and with regard certainly not just only to authoritarian censorship and free speech questions, but also what's emerging with artificial intelligence and machine learning and access to various databases and economics, what's emerging with economics and AI and business and AI in each of these 200 countries regarding possibly the limitations of authoritarian censorship, but also how the web, how Google, how many, many companies outside Russia, outside China, outside Saudi Arabia navigate, for example, authoritarianism via the web, on the web. Interesting sets of questions, which World University and School is in an incredible position iteratingly to approach. Item 8, in which of 200 countries, and this is in a related vein to questions of authoritarian censorship, in all 200 countries, and it's sort of a one question that could possibly transform approaches to authoritarianism on the web in many countries. In which of 200 countries will you be able to visit realistic virtual Harbin hot springs in Google Maps, Google Street View with time slider, and regarding authoritarian censorship? And with newly the Pixel smartphone, which is created partly by Google, or which is created by Google and Alphabet, and with the new Tensor G2 chip in Google AI virtual reality, and regarding naked Harbin ethnography, and even with Google Bard, AI generative chat GPT-like machine learning emerging software. This is if Google Maps is blocked in China or Russia or Saudi Arabia, and some possible citizens in these countries might seek to be able to visit a virtual Harbin hot springs. What's the conversation that such citizens and a Google Maps, Google Street View, Google might have with these countries to facilitate their citizens visiting, for example, a realistic virtual Harbin hot springs in Google Maps, Google Street View with time slider. And as these new hardware devices emerge, such as the Google Pixel smartphone and the Google Tensor G2 chip, with developing Google AI virtual reality, which these two hardware devices may build on remarkably. Virtual reality may take a remarkable jump with the Pixel 8 smartphone and the Google Tensor G2 chip. I think they're emerging this summer. I've asked this question just in item 7, but I'll ask it again, and sort of surrounding this visiting realistic virtual Harbin from all kinds of countries, including countries that might engage in forms of authoritarian censorship of the web. Item 9, how have all 200 countries created their own distributed internet webs as sociocultural anthropology queries, and regarding their nation states as political regimes, for example, beyond Google search AI, and for example, in authoritarian countries such as virtual Russia. And how can world university and school universities help develop these sociocultural anthropology queries about how have all 200 countries created their own distributed internet webs? So that's the news today. The open hour-long WS monthly business meeting is this Saturday, which is the 15th, April 15th, 2023 at 12 noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. I think it's about 9:30 p.m. India time. The URL will be in today's blog post in my blog, scott-mccloud.blogspot.com, as well as in the World University and School blog, worlduniversityandschool.blogspot.com. And come join this. This is an opportunity to help create MIT OpenCourseware-centric Wiki World University and School in all kinds of innovative ways. And lastly, the next WS News and Question and Answer meets in a week on Monday, April 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. Pacific time, 7:30 p.m. I think India Standard Time. See you then. I'll post today's recording to youtube.com/Scott McCloud World University, and see you Saturday at noon at Open World University and School monthly business meeting, loosely conducted in the manner of Quakers, unprogrammed Quakers, hour-long only. And see you Monday, April 17th, for the next WS News and Question and Answer. I'll post this also to twitter.com/WORLD UNIVANDSCH. This recording will be there. If you know of students potentially interested in free online accrediting bachelor's degrees, possibly beginning September 1, 2023, let meeting@worlduniversityandschool.org know. worlduniversityandschool.org is our website homepage, And until next week, see you then. Thank you and see you soon.